In 1954, a desperate 52-year-old salesman named Ray Kroc faced a brutal strategic challenge: how to extract national wealth from a single, highly efficient burger stand when he had absolutely zero capital, failing health, and a string of bankruptcies behind him. He sat sweating in his car outside that small restaurant in California, facing the raw fear of an aging fighter losing the final round of his life. He was staring through the windshield at a bustling operation, desperate to find a way to survive in a market that had completely left him behind. The California sun beat down on his dashboard as he watched the workers inside, feeling the crushing weight of a lifetime of missed opportunities pressing against his chest. His joints ached, his stomach churned with anxiety, and he knew with terrifying certainty that this small octagonal building was his absolute last shot at survival. Inside that building, the McDonald brothers had engineered a food production system that moved with the ruthless, perfect rhythm of a boxing drill. There were no wasted movements, no complex menus, and zero room for human error. Every worker was a highly specialized gear in a rapid-fire machine, turning out hamburgers, fries, and shakes in mere seconds. It was a disruptive innovation that completely shattered the slow, inefficient diner standard of the era. Ray saw this flawless choreography and knew instantly that this operational blueprint could scale across the entire country. He walked through those glass doors and practically begged the brothers for the right to take their exact system and franchise it to the rest of the world. But securing the rights to replicate that high-speed food drill was only the beginning of a much deeper, more agonizing nightmare. The heartbreaking truth was that his grand vision had quickly become a financial trap that was actively destroying his life. Ray was drowning in a sea of mounting debt, taking heavy, agonizing hits to his bank account every single day just to keep the lights on. He was pouring his entire soul into building new locations, yet he was effectively working for free. The stress bled into his home life, leaving him terrified that his wife would finally leave him over the relentless financial ruin. He would lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, feeling the suffocating panic of a man who had finally caught his golden opportunity only to realize it was bleeding him dry. The emotional toll was absolute, stripping away his pride and leaving him a hollowed-out shell. The core problem was a fundamentally broken revenue model that starved Ray of any real capital. The franchise agreement dictated that Ray only kept a minuscule percentage of the gross sales from each new restaurant he opened. When you are selling a hamburger for a mere 15 cents, that tiny percentage translates into literal pennies of profit. He was fighting with all his heart to expand the brand, but the rules of the game were completely rigged against him. His return on investment was practically non-existent because his heavy operating costs swallowed his microscopic share of the revenue. No matter how many burgers his franchisees sold, the underlying math guaranteed that Ray Kroc would remain permanently broke. Surrounded by ledgers covered in red ink, the reality of those missing pennies filled his cramped Chicago office with a sense of impending doom. Into this desperate, losing fight steps the man who changes the course of the battle forever, a financial expert named Harry Sonneborn. He sees a battered Ray Kroc taking hit after hit, barely surviving on the tiny fractions of a cent he makes from each burger sold. Sonneborn pulls Ray into the corner, metaphorically wiping the blood from his face, and forces him to look at the cold, hard numbers. He delivers a shocking truth that shatters everything Ray thought he knew about his own company. The brutal reality Sonneborn lays out is simple but world-changing. He tells Ray directly that he is not in the food business at all, but rather he is in the real estate business. The burgers, the fries, and the milkshakes are just the bait to fuel a much larger, invisible machine. To win this fight and escape the crushing weight of his debts, Ray has to stop fighting over scraps of paper money and start fighting for the solid ground beneath his feet. This single piece of advice sparks a massive genius pivot in strategy. Ray stops worrying about the pennies squeezed from cheap meals and completely changes his angle of attack. Instead of just selling a business plan to new partners, he creates a new company designed to buy up the actual physical land where the future restaurants will be built. He begins securing the best corner lots in growing towns across the country, turning empty dirt into his most powerful weapon. Once he owns that dirt, the trap is set. He leases the property back to the very people who want to run his restaurants, charging them a steep markup on the rent. Now, before a single burger is flipped or a single fry is salted, Ray is guaranteed a heavy, steady stream of cash just for owning the ground they stand on. He is no longer just taking a tiny cut of their food sales, he is taking a massive, guaranteed cut of their entire operation through the lease. The suffocating fear of bankruptcy vanishes, replaced by the deep, terrifying confidence of a man who suddenly owns the battlefield itself. With this new system in place, a heavy and dark shift in power takes hold over the entire empire. By holding the deeds to the land, Ray completely controls the lives and futures of his workers. He is no longer just a friendly partner trying to help them sell fast food. He is their absolute landlord, holding the ultimate threat over their heads. If a restaurant manager fails to meet his strict demands or falls behind on their payments, the consequence is swift and absolute. He can simply kick them out, strip them of their business, and keep the highly valuable land for himself to lease to the next eager fighter. It is a cold, harsh reality that transforms a shared dream of success into a brutal dictatorship. The people running the stores realize they are completely trapped, working tirelessly on ground they can never truly claim as their own. Down on that very ground, the daily reality for these restaurant operators is an endless, grueling fight for survival. These are everyday families who have put their entire life savings on the line, betting everything they have on the promise of the golden arches. They step into the ring every single morning, pouring their blood, sweat, and tears into the relentless machinery of the kitchen. They sweat over scorching grills and boiling oil for 14 hours a day, pushing themselves to the absolute limit just to keep the doors open. Every cent they earn from a tired customer is immediately swallowed up by the massive rent checks they owe to the corporation above them. They carry all the physical risk, all the daily stress, and all the crippling labor, while the landlord safely collects the profits from miles away. The relentless heat of the kitchen becomes a permanent cage for those who mortgage their futures just to lease a patch of Ray Kroc's dirt. The environment inside these early stores was a theater of absolute, almost cruel discipline. Ray demanded a level of control that left no room for human error, turning everyday kitchens into grueling training camps. It was like a fighter being forced to throw the exact same jab 10,000 times until his knuckles bled. Every single French fry had to be cut to the exact same thickness, fried for the exact same number of seconds, and salted with a precise, unvarying motion. The floors had to shine like mirrors, scrubbed raw by exhausted workers before the sun even came up. If a store owner broke these strict rules, the punishment was swift and merciless. Ray would threaten to cancel their lease, using his ownership of the dirt beneath their feet to force them back into line. The operators were not independent business owners. They were soldiers trapped in a demanding, unforgiving army where survival meant perfect obedience. This relentless discipline fueled an endless, powerful machine of financial growth. Every perfectly timed burger and spotless floor guaranteed a steady stream of customers, which guaranteed a steady stream of cash. But the real genius was where that cash went. The rent money poured in from the sweating, exhausted workers running the grills, and the corporation took that money directly to the bank. They used that guaranteed rent to secure massive loans, which they immediately spent to buy even more land on busy street corners. It was a cycle that simply could not be stopped. Step by step, the company bought a new plot of dirt, built a new restaurant, and installed a new operator to pay them rent, generating even more cash to buy the next corner. This unstoppable engine of buying land and collecting rent soon grew so massive that it crushed the very men who started it all. The bitter, heartbreaking breakup with the original McDonald brothers was the ultimate proof of this new, ruthless power. For years, the gentle creators who invented the speedy kitchen system watched in horror as their simple dream was twisted into a massive, aggressive real estate empire. When the tension finally boiled over, Ray bought them out for a fraction of what the empire would become. He took their very name, stripping them of their identity and leaving them in the dust of history. To twist the knife, when the brothers tried to keep their original single restaurant open under a different name, Ray opened a brand new, shiny location right across the street. He used his overwhelming financial weight to starve them of customers and drive the original creators completely out of business, leaving a heavy, dark stain on the company's legacy. With the founders defeated and the American map rapidly filling up, the corporation decided to take this fight across the world. Global expansion began, not just as an effort to sell more fries, but as a massive land grab on a planetary scale. Ray took his unstoppable real estate weapon to new countries, facing unknown cultures and entirely different business rules. The genius of the strategy proved itself again and again across continents. Even when the food had to change to match local tastes, the core business of buying the best dirt in the city remained exactly the same. They purchased prime real estate in London, Tokyo, and Paris, ensuring that no matter what the local workers were cooking, the corporation was always collecting the rent. By turning the entire globe into a checkerboard of corporate-owned property, the company secured a financial dominance that could survive any local economic crash. Look past the glowing golden arches and the brightly painted drive-through lanes. The world sees a cheerful, welcoming fast food giant, serving up billions of cheap meals to smiling families. But beneath the colorful plastic playgrounds and the sizzling grills lies a cold, calculated reality. The cheerful mascot and the happy meals are nothing more than a brilliant, colorful mask. The true empire is invisible to the hungry customer pulling into the parking lot. Those cheap salted fries and wrapped burgers are merely a distraction, a shiny lure designed to keep the machine running. The real staggering power of this global titan is not found in the kitchen, but buried deep in the dirt and asphalt underneath the building itself. They are not a food company at all, but a ruthless, massive collector of prime real estate. Today, that brilliant real estate engine creates a crushing, inescapable pressure for the people actually running the restaurants. Modern franchise owners often find themselves trapped in a beautiful, highly profitable cage. They are forced to pay massive, ever-increasing rent to the very corporation that sold them the dream of independence. On top of that staggering monthly bill, they must follow incredibly strict rules, buying specific equipment and ingredients at fixed, unyielding prices. It is a relentless daily fight just to keep their heads above water. These local operators sweat over the fryers, managing teenage workers and dealing with angry customers, grinding out tiny profits on every single dollar menu item. Meanwhile, the corporate giant hovering above them takes no risk and touches no raw meat, simply collecting massive rent checks and getting richer off the grueling, desperate struggle of the local owner. Inside the sweltering kitchens, the exhaust fans hum over exhausted crews, while the distant corporate landlord quietly extracts the wealth from the very floorboards they stand on. This brings us to the deepest, most profound revelation of this entire saga. The hamburger was never the goal. That simple, flat patty of beef is just a tiny, greasy tool used to generate the cash required to pay the monthly rent. It is a brilliant, almost scary truth about how the modern world works, proving that the brutal, hidden real estate strategy was the only thing that truly mattered in building this unstoppable empire. The shockwave of this strategy permanently altered the very landscape of global business. Other corporations watched this incredible accumulation of wealth and completely rewrote their own playbooks, shifting their focus from making great products to aggressively capturing the land beneath their customers' feet. Entire city blocks and small-town main streets were bought up, standardized, and transformed into corporate-owned profit centers. The dream of the independent, family-owned diner was quietly bulldozed, replaced by a rigid, unbreakable system of corporate land ownership. This single ruthless financial pivot created a new economic reality, one where owning the physical ground became the ultimate, unbeatable weapon for corporate dominance, leaving smaller, food-focused competitors hopelessly outmatched. But the true weight of this massive, land-owning machine falls heavily on the millions of everyday people trapped at the bottom of the system. In communities across the globe, the local workforce faces a harsh, unyielding reality. Because the franchise operator must hand over such massive portions of their revenue just to pay the corporate rent, there is almost nothing left to pay a living wage to the people actually doing the heavy lifting. The relentless demand of the real estate engine creates a permanent underclass of exhausted, underpaid workers who can never seem to get ahead. Entire neighborhoods are transformed into low-wage zones, where the bright glow of the golden arches serves as a constant, painful reminder of a system designed to extract wealth from the community, leaving the people who actually cook the food struggling just to survive. By the end of 2023, the corporation held over $40 billion in global real estate assets, a staggering figure that permanently altered how financial markets evaluate the entire restaurant industry. Competitors who tried to mimic their menu soon realized they were playing the wrong game entirely, forced to watch from the sidelines as the company secured the most valuable street corners on earth. The fundamental assumption of fast food shifted from cooking cheap meals to acquiring prime commercial land, turning every new location into a fortified financial asset. This invisible empire created an inescapable physical footprint, embedding the company into the very infrastructure of global cities and rural highways alike. When an ordinary diner closes, the building might become a hardware store or sit empty, but this property remains a highly controlled node in a massive rent collection network. The corporation does not just occupy space in the consumer market, it owns the literal ground beneath the economy, insulated against changing dietary trends and economic downturns by the sheer weight of its property deeds. The next time you see that glowing sign towering over a busy intersection, look past the crowded drive-through line and the familiar scent of salted fries. You are not just looking at a kitchen that serves billions, but at a perfectly engineered vault of dirt and concrete, quietly collecting rent while the world eats.